listeners. Good afternoon. How are you guys? I am so happy to be on my live today. I hope that you can join me. If not on the live, then in the replay. Replay is really where it's at, actually. That's where you get more of an algorithm boost. And I do need to worry about my algorithm. It's been lacking the boost lately. People in true crime are not so much interested in yoga in their true crime YouTube land, which is understandable. I was not expecting to do that, but I am trying to get out of the way so that you can see not my belly button, but the cool chakra tower. Fred Field suggested, supposed to be cleaning the house, but standing by. Oh, you're so sweet. How are you doing, Fred? Yeah, cleaning the house is like a never-ending misery, isn't it? Inside the house, outside the house. And yeah, I was trying to find like some Tic Tacs or a Jolly Rancher or something right before I started because I already have cotton mouth and I haven't even been talking. Probably just from doing a lot of yard work, and then the pollens are high. So, Fred, have you been keeping up with the Micah Miller case, and are you aware of the live stream that JP hopped onto last night on Justin TikTok? What's the name of his channel? Justin on TikTok. So amazingly, I caught it. Not live, but I caught it today on the replay. Justin on TikTok was doing a live, and then JP decided he wanted to come on. Wow. And then Robbie Harvey was there, or Rob Harvey. So one of the things that JP said, and let me just say, he was quite likable. I mean, you could really see where people could be manipulated by him pretty easily. Jackie says, I caught a live with no appointment. Yay. Not following it live, so bits and pieces. Yeah. Nice to see you both. And let me do my quick disclaimer. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of conversation, hoping to open up a discussion and learn something and be educational and gain some insight. All my videos to date have been made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. I've got my laptop. I'm still missing my little mic, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference when I have the laptop supported the way I have it. So hopefully the sound is okay if you guys want to let me know. If it's not, then we're SOL because I cannot find that freaking mic. I'm sure it's in this room that I'm in, but as you guys know, I'm continually rearranging. So transitioning it from a yoga studio to a YouTube studio. I noticed no difference in sound. Good. Yeah, thanks, Fred. I haven't noticed a difference either. The problem is really if I have the laptop sitting on fabric, like on a tablecloth or on the bed, obviously, then it's like super muffled and I have to have the mic. So cool. Good to know. So yeah, following the Micah Miller case and following, I Justin on TikTok is not somebody that I normally follow. I've heard of him recently. Same thing with the Rob Harvey or Robbie Harvey. They both seem really good. I don't know that much about them. They're covering this case well. And like I said, JP is quite the freaking charmer. And I'm very opinionated about him from what I know. And yeah, he does a good job gaslighting and making you think maybe you don't know what you know. It's important to know what you know, especially when you're up against clowns like him, because there's a lot of them and they're often in positions of power and they're often good looking and they will often, let me just say, flirt your pants off. Like that's their MO. If they can't flirt with you, they fight you. It's like one or the other, the opposite extremes. So you're either like going to get love bombed or you're going to get blowed up, right? So, Micah got love bombed. And then after that live, they wrapped it up pretty quickly so that they wouldn't lose the live. And then that channel, Justin on TikTok, he went live again for a couple hours. I actually caught all of them. So I've been doing a lot of housework today and listening to a lot of my YouTube stuff, and even some of it on like time and a half so that I can squeeze more in because there was so much stuff that I wanted to watch. I caught the latest Ninja Chihuahua. I was trying to find if there was any new Mr. Mark, because he has been taking his videos down shortly after he puts them up. So if you're interested in following Mr. Mark Investigates, I recommend that you try to catch his lives or watch them as soon as you see that they're there. Oh, another one that I've been trying to stay on top of, and I did. I got all caught up, but she took down one of the ones that I put the link into from my description yesterday, is Mama D 1111 True Crime. So I don't know why she took it down. I'm sure she's got a good reason, maybe a complaint, but who else had everything taken down? Truth Tsunami. Sagali had like 10 videos get reported or something, all Kylie videos, of course. Wow. So what a pain in the rear end. Well, look at all this. Everything is perfect. Yes, he is. Side note, Nate and Sammy expressed their love for each other in Insta the last day or two. Thank you, Fred. You know, I actually have an Insta account, but I took it off my phone because I was having so much trouble with storage on my phone. Oh, I'll have to check that out. That's freaking crazy. Wow. Well, you know, it would make sense if my theory is accurate that they both were involved in what went down with Kylie, because you got to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And if someone has dirt on you like that, man, that's a frenemy for sure. And you do not ever want to piss them off because they will throw you under the bus. I mean, they can blackmail you for life. And remember, you can't buy silence. You can only rent it. Fred Field, the cleaning can wait. I've got a little thing. I'll have to show it to you guys. Maybe I don't think I've put it up on my community post, but maybe I should today. It's housework won't kill you. Doing housework won't kill you, but why take the chance? Do you guys love it? I think it's great. Great. That is so crazy. Thank you very much for sharing that hot off the press, Mr. Field. This is why lives are so cool, because I can bring you a condensed version of the things that I've caught and you can do the same. And I really appreciate it. We're in this together. And we're all fighting for justice, fighting for truth, fighting for Kylie Rodney, fighting for Micah Miller, fighting for Gabby Petito to get full justice against the Moab PD and against the freaking Laundrie family. You know, Kylie, I don't think she's gotten any justice against anyone. That whole freaking town owes her big time. But I have a feeling that when you look at any of these cases, including Gabby's case, all you have to do is follow the money. So with Micah Miller's case, that church, Solid Rock, had assets upwards of $5 million. So I was thinking about the people in charge of the money that is coming as donations, as tithing, maybe other fundraisers as well. But that's kind of free money. I mean, it belongs to the church, it belongs to God. But what you can do with it while no one is the wiser, that is probably what JP and his attorney are getting investigated for, wouldn't you think? So Kylie Rodney's family, probably her mom and stepdad, I'm going to guess, had some bills to pay. You know, her mom came straight out and said that. And I don't know if she was trying to let a cat out of a bag, but I think she did let a cat out of a bag. And then like in the Idaho 4 and the billionaire and was it 1111 Mama D or someone else who just posted that maybe it was Crime Stories Obsessed, that the state of Idaho is about to go bankrupt? That's It's crazy. Oh, and then there was the whole hearing yesterday where Brett Payne testified, you guys. It was like almost 3 hours of a hearing. I watched some of it live. I did not catch the Brett Payne part live, but man, that dude is a weasel and a half, in my humble opinion. So yeah, we need to talk about that too. So there's a lot to talk about today. I don't think I have a time constraint that I know of. I was going to check my phone to make sure that I'm not missing something. And then, of course, one of my kids texted me. Let me, maybe I'll just call them back live real quick because I don't want to be bad. Let's see. Today's the 31st. It's 1:43. It's Friday. It's the last day of May. So I'm sorry, you guys. You don't mind if I just do this real quick and see what is going on? It's probably just a quick question. This is my life. I do have 4 children. The one is in the military, so he's out of the house, but the other 3 are all underfoot, so to speak. And this one is not answering his phone. He's out fishing, so he probably called to see if he could run around off leash for a while. Okay, so I'm just going to text him. I tried to call you back. Okay. Yeah, I love to talk about children being off leash or what I call free range parenting. I try to balance it. I'm kind of a strict parent, which kind of surprises me because my own parents were so ridiculously lenient, but I guess that's kind of typical too, to overcompensate. So I don't want to get into politics, but I was watching Trump's trial yesterday afternoon. Yeah, I heard about the results, and yeah, it's going to be a dumpster fire shite show, I think, for quite a while. My kid doesn't do phone calls. Everything with them is text. Mostly me too, Jackie. That's pretty much for everybody that I know. But for whatever reason, he was calling me. He didn't text me. So anyway, yeah, I do like to try to stay out of the politics. And wow, 34 counts, guilty on all charges. And Daybell was found guilty on all charges, which wasn't surprising. You guys probably know I don't follow the Daybell case closely. I'm absolutely devastated for the families and for the victims and all the people that they victimized. And Chad Daybell is another one like JP Ultra, as I've been calling him the last few days. Both being preachers and leaders of what some people might refer to as a cult versus a church. So South Carolina is quite the strong foothold of a Bible Belt state. It is the first state to break from the Union, the very first state. I kind of alluded to this the other day, but I didn't really get into it. North Carolina was almost the very last of the states to break from the Union. So they're quite different, even though they were both fighting for the Confederate side. North Carolina is more of a mixed bag. And my point in bringing up the Carolinas is because the Micah Miller case is happening in South Carolina, but then there's some of it and the really important piece of it in North Carolina, which is where her remains were found. So that's huge. And when you're dealing with different jurisdictions, it complicates things. tremendously, especially when you cross those state lines. Oh, just like I was talking about yesterday with the Idaho 4 and Pullman, Washington, and Moscow, Idaho. And so not only do you have different cities, different counties, in Pullman, you have Wazoo, which is much bigger than the town, like 3 times the size of the town, roughly. And then you've got totally different states. And Idaho is kind of like an independent state in some senses. I mean, they do things their own way. I'm surprised they're not their own country. They kind of act like they are. So let's see. Maybe he needs PayPal money. LOL. That is why my son calls instead of text. LOL. Well, it's the son that lives here. And so it probably is not that. And then the other son in the military, I think he's pretty stable. You know, he's only 19. He'll be 20 next month. And he's already married and he's doing really well. He's in the honor guard for the Navy and he's loving it and he's worked his way up the ranks. So they pay pretty decent. They compensate very well, especially if you're married. So, you know, it works out nicely. JP is in a league all his own. I can't believe he has gotten this far. Well, Jackie, did you see him on that interview? Because that was how I felt until I saw him on the interview. And then I was like, oh, you can see how he's gotten that far. He's really got the, I don't know. He's got his mojo on. He's quite the smooth operator. So that's how he's gotten so far with people like Micah, the other teenagers in the church, all their families, I mean, a lot of people in that congregation have left, but some of them have stayed. I don't know about a lot, and I don't know currently what's going on. My daughter is self-sufficient. She's a medical social worker for Ryan White Foundation for AIDS HIV. Very cool. Very cool. Yes, outside. He definitely knows how to turn on the charm. Like, you know, and he looks so ugly to me in most of the photographs, especially when you know his personality, of course. But in that video, he really comes across as the suave, handsome, tall guy that he likes to talk about when he's doing his services and mentioning how tall and handsome and intelligent he is, right? Talking about himself in the third person. Yeah, that's not crazy. Not crazy at all. So, so let's see. I've got some notes here. Do you guys realize that JP has a 28-year-old son? And if you know how old JP is and you do the math, so the son is only 2 years older than his wife was, right? 28 and 30. JP is 44. So was he 16 when he became a dad? Maybe that's part of his trouble, is that he's like arrested development at age 16 because he had all of that responsibility. And I'm just saying part of his trouble. I'm not trying to empathize with him. I'm just trying to understand him. And I think that there's a lot of people that have kids that young who do just fine. So I don't want anyone to take offense with that because that's a rough road being a teen parent, but plenty of people do it and are fine. So anyway, just his like sowing his wild oats, you know, like the whole midlife crisis kind of thing, buying the plane that he calls a jet that's not a jet, it's a single engine plane. $500,000. What didn't he say that it was like donated to them, but he purchased it, and didn't he purchase it with the attorney? So again, you know, big money wrapped up with the church and him having easy access to it and basically doing whatever he wants with it, and then controlling everybody around him by cutting off their access to the money, like in Micah's case. Yeah. Yeah, it is nauseating. It's absolutely nauseating. So there's a lot of things that we know and then we forget. And a lot of things that we think we know, and then we realize maybe we didn't really ever know that. Like, let me just jump into Kylie Rodney for a few minutes, into her case, listening to the most recent Ninja Chihuahua, and her most recent drop is talking a lot about Jared and Nick G and that surprise interview. Okay, I was snowed by Nick G for a very, very long time, like almost roughly a solid year, more or less. At this point in time, I think he's a really good actor, and I think he's full of it. And I am wondering if Jared put him up to that. I am wondering if there is no footage from the roadside assistance call. And I have a very different take on it than Ninja does, respectfully, because she does such great work. And I just think it's good to look at things from different possibilities. But by having him injected into the story, it gave so much more dimension to all of the suspicions that people had. And it was a great way to maybe misdirect and a red herring. And knowing what we know now about Jared and his past and his inappropriate behavior with children, you know, he was a child technically when that happened. He was 16, but his cousin, I want to say, was like 8 or 10. And any 16-year-old knows that's wrong. And that was like full blown SA. Full blown. So he was 16 years old. So that was some earth-shattering information that we got after the fact. But now knowing that and putting that into the context of him being that type of person, because even though he was technically a child at 16 as well, I'd still say that that takes a really sick type of person to take advantage of their much, much younger cousin. That's disgusting. That is absolutely unacceptable. I don't care if he was a victim himself and he was re-victimizing. That's still unreasonable. You don't do that. A lot of people have been victimized themselves and don't turn around and victimize the children around them. So anyway, with that history for him, it makes more sense that he might have been in on this whole red herring kind of cover up, trying to protect people that got their grubby paws onto Kylie. Yesterday, Mr. Mark did a live and the one that I was active in, I was talking with him about that photograph, you know, through the chat, the photograph that Jägermeister has, the Polaroid, the photograph, right? That black and white Polaroid that he's holding, and then he snaps a picture of it, and then he posts it on, was it his Instagram account or TikTok? I can't keep up with all these things, but I will probably use that for a thumbnail because it's not just the picture that counts. To me, the context of that picture with his post and what he posted with it is crazy. I can look it up real quick and read it to you. Like I said, I'll use it for the thumbnail too, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, I've been looking at it a lot lately and just trying to really understand it at a whole new level. So this is it. And it's titled The Start of 17. Shh. This is the photograph we're talking about. Sorry for the glare. You guys see Kylie in there and Jägermeister's big thumb. So it had 7 likes at the time. It says, The Start of 17. You people truly are the scum of the earth. Stalkers, pedophiles, liars, selfish, greedy criminals. Bet you don't like getting called out now, huh? Help get this to who deserves it. And then there's 3 comments. I don't have the comments here, but it's interesting because I'm suspicious of Jägermeister too, just like I'm suspicious of Scammy and Hamburglar Kid. So stalkers, pedophiles, liars, selfish, greedy criminals. Who's he talking about? Is he talking about people that were stalking Kylie and then calling them pedos and liars and selfish and greedy and criminals? Bet you don't like getting called out now, huh? Help get this to who deserves it. So that last sentence is what really threw me. Help get this to who deserves it. Like, get the photograph to who deserves it. Like, to show them what their actions led to. I don't know. I don't want to read too much into that. But yeah. So my point there is that Jared may have been in the same camp with like Sheriff Wu, who we know has a grisly past that he's admitted to. He's admitted to his own pedo type of activity. And I'm trying to remember the teenager that he did the drive-alongs with him, that he had full-blown SA with. I'm trying to remember if she was under 18 or if she was 18 at the time. I want to say she was under, because there was this whole thing. Yeah, she was under. She was 16, because there was this whole thing about how he said that he didn't know her age and he thought she was 18. But that's absolute BS, because as a ride along, you have to do fingerprints, birthday, social security number, full background check, all of it. Probably these days have your DNA on file. So he would have been able to know exactly how old she was. And even if he didn't know, even if she was twice that age, it's still completely inappropriate. And then he went so far as to allegedly, I don't know if he admitted to this part, that she was with child and he arranged to terminate that for her. So that to me is absolute abuse beyond measure. Again, especially with her being underage, but at any age, gross. So if Jared and Wu are cut from the same cloth, if they know each other, and we have to remember that Nick G, the roadside assistance guy, donated 5,000 buckarooskies to Wu's campaign to run for sheriff earlier that year. That's crazy, especially if he were actually working as a roadside assistance guy, living in Reno, even though that's not California. I'm sure the cost of living is sky high. 5,000 clams is a lot of extra cash to have laying around and give to some sheriff campaign. So we know that Nick G and Wu are in the same camp. And then maybe they all know each other is what I'm trying to say, if I haven't been clear. Let me see what you guys are saying. Sandra, hello, my dear. The problem is everyone is charged on the same basis. Courthouses across the nation will be packed. There lies the issue. People will be in trouble everywhere. Yeah, I know. I mean, statutory is a horrible thing that very rarely gets prosecuted. Absolutely. But it still should be. And especially when it's freaking police chief, like I said, or sheriff. He wasn't sheriff at the time, but the whole point of that affidavit that lawyer wrote up was to try to enlighten people who were voting for him to become the sheriff. So the affidavit was made public and he was elected anyway. I think he was appointed because the sheriff previous to him vacated quickly. I think they said medical reasons, but I'm really curious what was going on before Wu took over the office. And then I think they did an election after to secure him. Like he was probably interim sheriff before then becoming permanent sheriff, which brings up in the Idaho 4 case, the police chief Jenkins, the guy who interviewed the criminal defendant on April 12th of 2022 for the alleged fellowship position. And then once he resigned from being police chief for Pullman PD, he was then hired as the interim police chief over there at Wazoo when their entire command staff was basically let go or resigned or under investigation and ready to be in the penalty phase. And they were all resigned. The three of them, the chief, the assistant chief, and the captain. So Jenkins, is he still interim police chief there at Wazoo, or has he been installed now as just regular chief? I mean, it's been probably really close to a couple of years that he's been the police chief at Wazoo, if he's indeed still there, which the last time I checked wasn't that long ago, and he was still considered interim. And I thought that was really curious. Thought that was very curious. Let's see. Sherry Irvin. Hello. Let's see. Not just a problem for DT, but everyone. And him being, I'm not sure who DT is. Am I spacing out? If you want to say, Sandra, him being raised in Utah with a family believed to be polygamist, known to marry girls off young to older men, could be confusing to a kid growing up in it. Concerns me. Absolutely. Like I said, that gives you the context to help you understand it. But still, a lot of those people that have been abused like that are not going to turn around and abuse other people because they know how much havoc that wreaks on a person. And so they're more considerate. And yeah, I mean, I've known people who've been victimized who've then turned around and victimized other people. And it's not uncommon, but it's still unacceptable. So yeah, DT, not sure who DT is. Like I said, am I just totally missing it as I'm jumping from case to case? Dylan Thomas, isn't that a writer or something? Anyway, so yeah, these cases are just a freaking mess, and people talking about the Idaho 4 case getting dismissed based on the lack of the prosecution's ability to show their work of how they came up with things like the criminal defendant's location that night. DT. Thank you, Sandra. Let me read that again. Not a problem for DT, but everyone. Yeah. There's a lot of corruption, absolutely, but tolerating it isn't gonna help, of course. And I really do like to try to steer clear of the DT because that's such a heated man. People just get really heavy duty on one side or the other. And honestly, people might think I'm heavy duty on one side or the other, and I'm not. I mean, I kind of see it from both sides, I think. My big thing about it, and I'll just say it because I do feel very passionate about the insurrection, and especially Brian Sicknick, the police officer that passed away the day following after he was beaten at the insurrection. And all the other fatalities that happened at the insurrection and subsequently. There were several officers that took their own lives, and that is the thing that hangs me up the most is that I can't get past that. So, yeah. Sandra says, I tried. Thank you, Sandra. That's cute. I asked for it, right? And yeah, I know. It was when that news came out yesterday, I thought, man, the streets of YouTube are going to just be on fire. So, yeah. Anyway, let's get back to talking about these cases. That Lana Del Rey sweatshirt seems to me like a very intentional red herring to try to throw the narrative in the direction of Kiely Rodni being despondent, having taken off on her own accord, and then maybe self-injurious, right? So what I find really curious about the Lana Del Rey sweatshirt is that there was such a big deal made about it up front. And then her mother, Kylie's mom, was so insulting, acting like nobody was intelligent enough to know who Lana Del Rey is. Oh, she's this amazing singer with these amazing lyrics. And, you know, she is an amazing singer with amazing lyrics, but I don't know that she's written any of her own songs. I could be incorrect about that. I'm a big fan of Lana Del Rey. I think she is fantastic, but the songs that I know of hers are cover songs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted to point that out. That sweatshirt was weird, and then that comment that Scammy made, like, you know, oh, if a shirt changes or something, like what? Oh, what do you know? The black Lana Del Rey hoodie just turned into a white Odd Future hoodie with pink print. Oh, okay. How did she know the shirt was going to change? And then no hoodie, and then the tank top versus the bodysuit, whatever, you know, tank top and a bodysuit, that can be one and the same thing, that somebody just doesn't realize that it's a bodysuit because they only see it from the top up. And I think that was a bodysuit. And I think that it was a bodysuit that was found on the road between Boca and Prosser. And then they tried to play it off like it was a tank top. And I remember the day that I realized that what we thought was like the arm strap that was wider than the spaghetti straps of Kylie's or, you know, Kylie, not Kylie, from the surveillance footage, photograph, still shot. I remember when I realized that could be a thong, like it's too wide to be a spaghetti strap, but it could be a thong. And I did this like 3-minute video about it, and I thought I broke the case wide open. On that day, I thought, okay, done and dusted. I got this. But I do think it's very significant. I think it's like a lot of the other information that the authorities in that case tried to tell the public was misinformation. And that is disinformation if they're intentionally trying to be misleading, which I think they were. Anyway, yeah. My video about that, I'll put a link to that in the description, because I don't think I've like linked up my own videos in my descriptions before, maybe once or twice, but yesterday I did as an afterthought. I put that Kopaka video in there that I did make on December 15th, and he was allegedly taken out by SWAT on December 15th. So I found the video and I put the link there because, you know, I'd have to watch it again. I didn't watch it yesterday, but I did watch it a few months ago with the same thought, like, wow, I was really right on top of that right away. Like not even the next day, but same day. Like the minute I heard about it, I was like, no, too much coincidence there to just be completely unrelated. These things don't happen in a vacuum. So like, that's why I'm so curious about the sheriff before Wayne Wu. Just like if you look at the police chief before Jenkins at Wazoo, you're going to get the information about how that whole command staff mishandled Matthew Kurt and his El Disgusto activities at work. But then you have the other guy. Is it Brett or Brent that over there at Pullman that Jenkins was supervising when a very, very similar thing happened? And then the two of them were both involved the night that the 18-year-old was essayed by the Pullman police sergeant who went on trial and then was acquitted. Can you guys follow this? I'm sorry. Let's see. I always forget his name. I'm pretty sure it's Brett. Somebody, let me look it up if I can. Pullman PD Sergeant. Charged with sorry, take a minute with this. I think it's important though. Dan Hargraves. Yeah, I'm glad I looked that up since I had his name completely wrong. Dan Hargraves was charged with first-degree custodial SEX misconduct, a Class C felony. But then ultimately, I want to say that the charges were dropped because it was a hung jury and the victim was not okay with moving forward. She was so traumatized. The poor kid was 18. She had diabetes. She was drunk. She was in a medical crisis with her diabetes. She was abused by Dan Hargraves and the other guy, the one I just said, the one who was responsible for Matthew Kurt. Yeah, Matt Kurt, Kurht. So he was responsible for all of the command staff above him getting axed. And then he didn't resign from Wazoo Police Department until November 4th, you guys. 8 days before the Idaho 4 happened. And then Chief Small Fry's wife, Julie Fry, was elected to be the clerk of courts on November 7th, 5 days before the quadruple unaliving. These aren't coincidences. These things don't happen isolated from each other, especially when you have such a small town and you have so many of these freaking coincidences. That whole case, I believe, is garbage. I truly believe. I believe that the criminal defendant was probably hired by Pullman PD for that fellowship, and that he knew all the law enforcement. And then you got to remember, too, that the law enforcement that were working on the Idaho 4 in Moscow, many of those same individuals were members of the SWAT team that showed up at the incident December 15th. And how many of them knew one or both of the BKs? Anyway, makes your head explode. Bex is here. Idaho is nuts. It's my very first case after I was laid up after surgery in late November 2022. Now I'm addicted. I tried so hard to steer clear of Idaho 4. I'll have to look at the date of my first Idaho 4 video, but I remember, I was trying not to get distracted off of Kylie's case, trying not to look at the Trinity Backus case, and then I finally did, and, those were both big together. I was trying to stay focused on Trinity Backus and Kylie when Idaho 4 happened. And I was like, I'm not looking at Idaho 4 because I thought the whole thing sounded bogus from jump. I really did. I was just like, yeah, that's not, no. Highly unlikely. But then I got sucked into it, maybe, I don't know, a week or two. It seems like it was more like a month, but I'd have to go back and look at the dates. So Idaho is nuts. Yeah, I mean, you're just not going to have a crime like that happen. And then exactly 30 days later, give or take a day, you're going to have that SWAT thing happen with a protected person who they did not use the protected person protocol. And I have huge issue with that. Kopaka or Kopak, whichever the name is, he fought for our country. He had a head injury from his tour of duty. He was awarded a Purple Heart. I have a lot of empathy for that. My grandfather was awarded a Purple Heart in the Korean War. And for someone in that status, they must use the protected person protocol. And in real life, if that were to happen, what happened there to Brent, allegedly, you would have these like VA community outrage. You would have people making waves. So yeah, the whole thing is so quiet. So quiet. No justice for Kylie at all. Yeah. Payne in Mabute. So Payne was giving testimony yesterday. He's the one that was in charge. I'm glad you brought up his name, though, Jackie, because I mentioned it yesterday. We have to keep in mind that a woman named Susan Payne was one of 5 people that purchased the house right across the street from the criminal defendant's parents out there in Pennsylvania, and looking directly at the parents' house. Like, literally you could be in their living room looking into the living room across the street. And then that house that those 5 people bought, they sold it 4 months later, and they took like a $4,000 loss on it. It was a very nice house. It was like close to $500,000. It was a very nice house. I have a lot of photographs of it and a lot about it in old community posts. So maybe I'll repost some of those or something to bring them back up to surface. But that's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. We got to keep these things in mind. Beck says, late but here. We'll watch the beginning on replay later. Hello. Annie bees. I was thinking about bees last night. Tangent. Squirrel. I was thinking, how on earth do they know to build those little hexagons? I've got this super cool beehive type of geometric toy. It's called a Y ball, and it's like 50 of these little magnets. And I used to have a red one that was called an X ball. So they have the X ball and they have the Y ball. Anyway, how do the bees know how to do that? Like, I know it's instinct, but that's just magnificent. There's so much mystery in the world like that. So I like the little bee in your handle there, Anna Bees. Jackie says, I didn't know this about the house that Susan Payne. So I did a ton of deep diving on Brett Payne. He owned that business that changed names like 6 times in Bonner's Ferry that was called Meats and Locker. And there was somebody in my chat who I could have sworn was him, who was harassing me all the time, especially when I first found it out and I called it something like Meat Locker. And they were like, no, it's Meats and Locker. And I looked it up because I was like, I'm pretty sure I was right. And I looked it up and they were both right. And the name had changed like 6 times and it was all super close. It was like Meats and Locker, Meat Locker. anyways, in Bonner's Ferry, which is like 4 hours away, which is where that Dr. Drake was shot by another chiropractor, Bonner's Ferry, Idaho. And then the police officer or the Idaho State Highway Patrol that was the lead on that and did a wrongful conviction allegedly for the other chiropractor. I think Drake was the one who was unalived. Anyway, that same ISP officer was the same guy that was in the 1122 King Road residence when the alleged sheath was allegedly discovered, and he's the guy who took it into his possession, and he had been part of a Giglio Brady investigation for his unethical behavior in the wrongful conviction of Dr. Drake's murder. I mean, Red Rum. So that, and if anybody wants to look it up, I'll look it up just because it's good to, have some facts, right? So Idaho State Patrolman, who was you guys are probably way ahead of me. You probably already have it up in the chat. It's just telling me all this other stuff. It's not telling me about that guy. If I put Bonner's Ferry in it. So it's also important to know that I want to say Brett Payne owned a business in Castle Rock, Washington, right next to where Caden Young was found unalive of an apparent overdose from the rugs that were supplied to him by Emma Bailey and Demetrius. Remember, they were arrested at the same time as Koberger. And then let's see. Okay, so it's only pulling up the who is the officer that took the sheath into custody? Did you guys see it? Could you take clover, orange blossom, etc., and sugar and make honey? Doubt it. Bees are amazing, designed by God's creatures. Exactly. And I love honey. Oh, I am like the honey bear. I'm like Pooh Bear. I go through a lot of honey. So that's weird that the case isn't pulling up. It makes you wonder if it's been scrubbed or something, because I know that I have in the past pulled a lot of that up. So I want to say his name like started with an I or something, his last name. The Idaho State Highway Patrol officer. Involved. Come on. This is so annoying. It doesn't want to talk about that thing over there in Bonners Ferry. I'll look it up and I'll put it in. Let's see. I'll just put it in somewhere else. Can't you guys find it for me? Come on, chat. I want to give it one more try. But here, I pulled this up, the Washington Post, January 5th, 2023. A police officer at Washington State University, where Koberger was working toward a doctorate in criminology, spotted his car 4 days later. Isn't that nice? It's just, their whole thing, man, is just so wackadoodle. So, the knife sheath that was tested and nothing was found. And so then they sent it to Texas to retest it. So it was not in police custody when it was being shipped. Okay. Yeah, it's not going to tell me the name of the guy. So annoying. Anyway, so I was talking about Brett Payne. I was talking about his business there in Bonners Ferry, and then that connection with the Idaho State Hwy Patrolman who was involved in that other case in Bonners Ferry that was like 5 years ago, I think, the Dr. Drake. And then how Brett Payne also owned the business in Castle Rock, right by where Caden Young just happened to pass away. And then Emma Bailey and Demetrius were never charged. Like, they've got to be confidential informants, right? So I'm just going to look up, I'm Googling chiropractor charged in other chiropractors, other chiro. Bonners Ferry. It's got to tell me. And yeah, even though it's like 4 or 5 hours away in Idaho, I think a lot of things take a long time to get to because of the mountains, even if it's not that far. So Dr. Moore was the one that was arrested. And Brian Drake was the one who was unalived. So there was, so it was a coerced false confession is what the allegation is. But what I'm still looking for is the name of the Idaho State Hwy Patrolman who who allegedly had done the inappropriate charges. They just don't want to mention his name. Let's see. But see, it can tie in with that Idaho State Hwy Patrolman and people having dirt on him and him being dirty and then him being the one that took the key alleged evidence into custody. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I want to say, well, the charges were dismissed May 13th, 2021. And oh, it's so annoying. Okay, I'm just going to set that down and I'm going to come back to you guys. Did you find it? Like they don't want us to know that Idaho State Highway Patrolman's name because it's the same guy. Like, he should have been charged with what he did in Dr. Drake's unaliving, and he wasn't charged. And then he's like the fall guy in the Idaho 4, when Brett Payne is the one who says he found it. And then the other guy, the sergeant that arrived with him, he had a different story about it. Like, was it on the bed? Was it under the blankets? It was under Maddie. I mean, come on. And it just had that one little strand of touch DNA, but no red stuff, no other DNA, even though leather is a very porous material. Makes no sense. Okay, let's see. I just hope it comes out. Yeah, I believe it could be a trifecta of things that morning of November 13th, 2022. Absolutely. I'm still wrapping my head around the house that was bought. Right. Because so what I was going off on all the tangents of what I learned about Brett Payne. His dad has the same name, but different middle initial, and was like 24 years older than him, maybe. So I think it was his dad. It could have been his uncle, but they were like co-owners of the Meats and Locker. And then that guy had a bunch of records that went back to Alaska. He had a rap sheet in Alaska. The other Brett Payne with the different date of birth and the different middle initial. Let's see. One of their initials was BM, because I thought it was funny. And I can't remember what the other middle initials was. A J. It was BJ and BM. I'm about 100% sure. So I forget which one was which. But anyway, yeah, when I saw that there was a Susan Payne that was on this list of 5 people that purchased that house together, and let me kick the credit. Oh man, I'm not going to remember the name of the channel. It's been too long. Anyway, there was another content creator who discovered that. The Hard Truth. You guys remember The Hard Truth? She was the one who discovered the purchase with Susan Payne's name on it. And then I went down that rabbit hole and found out that they sold it at a loss, several $1,000s loss. So it's not like they bought it to flip it. They turned around and sold it a few months later. And it really made no sense, except if that Susan Payne was a relative of Brett Payne's, and if this whole thing was some kind of conspiracy against Brian Kohberger. So in the event that he was hired for that fellowship, I could see him being offensive to people that he worked with, and them wanting to mess him up, because he was hired. If he got the position in his application, he wrote that his motivation was that he wanted to basically teach podunk rural officers how to do their jobs right. In so many words. He said it just slightly more polite than that. He said that he wanted to help the efficiency of the collection of electronic data in rural cases, right? So basically, Mr. Know-it-all who's never been a cop. He'd been security at his, at the high school that he worked at. And then, like, maybe his mom worked at that high school, or his dad worked at that high school. And then he got a job as security there back in Pennsylvania. But anyway, it is really weird, too, that Kopaka or Kopak also owned property in Pennsylvania. Like, what are the chances, you guys? What are the chances? You are a wealth of information, especially in the Idaho case. I'm just so happy that my brain works, because one of the reasons I love doing a channel and being a content creator is because it keeps me on my toes. And I'm usually super awful with names across the boards. So I'm amazed when I can remember anybody's name. And yeah, I do have a lot of information that I've gathered up. You know, a bunch of my laptops have been blowed up, I think, by external forces. I'm not sure. I might have blowed them up myself because, you know, not the sharpest with electronics. But there was Memorial Day last year. My cell phone and my laptop blew up on the same day, you guys, over the Memorial Day weekend. And I think that I was being trolled heavily by people in the Kylie case. And I think I was being trolled heavily in the Idaho case. So devices blowing up on the same day. And the one laptop, it was one that I had bought at Costco. It was still under warranty, but the Costco store, they have such a good return policy. It had been just like 6 months or something. So they just gave me cash for the laptop because the whole thing was just blank. It was just dead. It was DOA. And it wasn't that simple. You know, I went through all kinds of avenues trying to get it fixed before then just going that route. And then my iPhone, when I took it to Apple, they said, wow, man, you got the worst lemon we've ever seen. And I told them about my channel and that I thought maybe there was a remote possibility. And they're like, nah, you just got a bad one. Worst we've ever seen. So yeah, they both went completely dead pretty much on the same day. I remember being without devices for the entire freaking Memorial Day weekend, thinking I was going to die, because that's a 3-day weekend, and being without that stuff for one day at that point in time was like a death sentence. And then it turned into a very, very long time because of the way those things go. And I was just going nuts. But anyway, it was, you know, it's always good to put the brakes on, whether you're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, and just reevaluating, reassessing the situation. So a lot of laptops in the first year, because how long have I had this laptop? It wasn't even a year ago that the last one burnt itself out. And that was such a cool one. That was a gaming laptop. That was a Predator. I loved it. Super, super nice. But then I just went with like a regular laptop after that because it was heavy. It was like a brick. It was like a cinder block. Anyway, it's better than so funny. Better than word puzzles. Well, it's much more interesting. But yeah, I mean, Scrabble and word puzzles are fun too. Words with friends. Remember Alec Baldwin was on that airplane years ago, like 5 or 10 years ago, and he got in trouble with the pilot because he wouldn't turn off his cell phone, and then he went all ballistic on the staff and was like, I'm playing words with friends, leave me alone. So I got a text back from the kid. All right. And how long have we been on? Just slightly over an hour. So let me look at my notes and see what I have wanted to talk about other talking points that I hadn't gotten to yet. Oh, JP's church, the Solid Rock, got the best church in Myrtle Beach 4 years in a row. It was in the Hall of Fame. Never has that been done by any church in South Carolina. Woohoo. Woohoo. Crazy. So yeah, I'm very suspicious that maybe that footage that would have been from the roadside assistance Nick, I'm very suspicious that maybe that footage did never exist, that it wasn't just the company saying that it never existed. Like, who knows what to believe in these cases, you guys? It's freaking nuts, isn't it? So on the Justin on TikTok, one of the crazy things that JP Ultra said is that something is coming next week and everything will come out. And he also added, I want justice for Micah too. I too want justice for Micah. So why would JP be talking about justice for Micah if he believes she did that to herself? That doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. But so in the interview that Justin on TikTok had, and I'll put links to both of these in my description. In that interview, after the interview with JP, two of Micah's sisters, and I don't know how many sisters she has, but two of them were being interviewed on the live spontaneously. And the one whose name is Sierra, who said that she was the person that was in the mall that JP yelled out Micah to her, and it was very emotional. It really shook her up. And her son, who's only 8 years old, and it was before he turned 8. He was only 7 at the time. And her son told her that he felt extremely unsafe when that happened, and he was demanding that they leave. And I thought, wow, that's pretty astute for a 7-year-old to pick up on all that. So just by JP yelling Micah's name when he saw Sierra, that freaked her son out so bad. And of course, it's going to freak them out because they just lost their loved one. But the son articulated to the mom that he felt unsafe. And I'm thinking he probably was. It probably wasn't a safe situation. I mean, JP's a madman as far as I'm concerned, in my humble opinion, allegedly. I mean, in my conspiracy theory, allegedly, right? Good old Rich Lux. So, they are being very careful about defamation in any of their talking about JP in these interviews. So that's good. They need to be. I mean, he's obviously the litigious type. But the one thing that they said that was really, I'm so glad I looked at my notes to see this, to remind myself to share it with you guys, is that they thought that Micah had Stockholm syndrome. And I believe that she did. I also learned in that second interview with the sisters that Micah tried to get married when she was 17 and the parents wouldn't let her. And that was part of the whole thing with JP telling other church families that her family was abusive and she needed a place to stay to get away from them because they wouldn't allow her to get married at 17. Like, that's just crazy. So, he also said in his interview that him and Micah talked a lot about what they would do if one of them passed, and that the body doesn't matter if you're a believer in Christ. And that's why they just went ahead with the cremation right away. And it's like, that doesn't even make sense. Okay, let's just say that that's all true. What I just said, he said that him and Micah had talked a lot about their wishes upon the end of life. And if that was true, but you were in a situation of an unattended unaliving, you would still want to do things prior to the cremation. So JP claims that he wanted them to do an autopsy and they wouldn't do it. Yeah, right. I don't believe that. Let's see. What else? Oh, does the freaking Solid Rock Church have ATM or more than one ATM inside of it, you guys? I meant to look that up because that came up in the interview. I think after they interviewed JP, they were talking about that. Rob Harvey and Justin on TikTok. That Solid Rock has ATMs inside the church. I've never heard of such a thing. So I meant to do a little bit of research and see if I could confirm that or not, if you guys are interested. That would be bizarre. Have you ever heard of a church having an ATM inside? I mean, maybe in like Vegas, right? Where you're going to have like gambling inside of everything, probably even the churches. Let's see. Most sincere churches are in it for its purpose, not for earthly rewards. Yeah. The way I have to remember names, dates, and times, which is more challenging and interesting. Yep. And it's hard to believe JP. We'll see next week. It kind of reminded me of that other Justin when he was coming out on the streets of YouTube saying all that stuff about Police Chief Small Fry was going to be coming out in the next couple of days and all his cray allegations. If it's going to come out next week, why isn't it already out? Because I don't buy it. I think he's talking out of his rear end. He was also impressed at how many subscribers Justin I have. Yeah, I noticed that too. Well, and he was just like, ooh, attention, people will see me. And then when one of the commenters said something about, that he was attention seeking, he was like, what do you mean? I've been living in a black hole with no contact with people. How could I be attention seeking? It's like, dude, right now, why are you outside of your house on the freaking streets of YouTube? I haven't ever heard of that ATM in a church. Nope. But it seems very much like going back to like Jesus Christ Superstar and the whole story there. Like if they did that modern day, wouldn't they have ATMs right there in the church? In my opinion. Hey, Annie Ruler. Nice to see you. So yeah, there are some good little things I jotted down here. Let me see what else I might have that I haven't shared yet. So yeah, Sarah Francis is the one who is saying that her son said he wanted to leave immediately because he didn't feel safe with JP there calling Sarah Micah. Crazy. So what I did want to share about another case, because you know how I am, I like to just keep jumping tracks. I don't think we've talked about Meredith Kircher yet today, have we? So, Amanda Knox, who is also an attention whore, in my humble opinion, is doing like a Hulu series with Monica Lewinsky. Like Monica Lewinsky is doing the Hulu series, and instead of calling it anything about Meredith Kircher, it's called like the Amanda Knox case, and it's going to be coming out soon. And this scared the bejesus out of me. But the flip side of it is that maybe she'll hang herself. She can't stop, won't stop. Like she got away with Red Rum, in my opinion, and she just can't control herself. Like just let it go and move on with your life. But no, she wants to keep hurting the Kircher family and keep rubbing their nose in the fact that not only did she get away with it, but that she's made a career out of it. They've begged her to just quit saying Meredith's name. They begged her to quit threatening to visit Meredith's resting place. They actually had to get like a restraining order to prevent her and her freaky boyfriend, the Rafaela Scolito, Perugia. That's how you say the name. You don't pronounce the G. It's a soft G, like an S. Perugia, Italy. I was like totally hacking it up. Anyway, Yeah, so I was looking at the Meredith Kercher case because Amanda Knox is being charged by the state of Italy for defamation of Patrick, is his last name, Mumba or something like that, the guy who owned the bar and grill that her and Meredith worked at, that she implicated in Meredith's unaliving. And he was held in prison or jail for 2 weeks, and he lost his business. He lost his home. I want to say he lost his family. I'm not sure if he's still married, but he was married and had kids. He owned his own home. He owned his own business, and everything went to pot after her accusations against him. So although this was in 2007, so a long time ago, do a little bit of math, and that would be what, 15, 17 years ago. So they're still moving forward with the defamation charges against her. So that's why the Meredith Kercher case was in the news a lot the last few months. And those charges are still pending. I think that the trial is going to start in July, but I'm kind of going off the top of my head. I want to say that the charges were filed or refiled just a couple months ago, like maybe March of this year. So we're going to hear a lot more about that case. And again, like I said, maybe this will be the Trojan gift horse for Amanda Knox, and she'll take herself down with putting all this information out there. It's just nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Like Gypsy Rose, all she needs to do is stay off YouTube or whatever she uses, and people would leave her alone. Right, but personality disorder people, they are attention whores, and they can't leave anything alone. They're kind of like OCD. Like they keep, if they burn their hand when they touch the stove, they just keep doing it again and again and again, because they don't learn. They don't learn. Was that Shan who just ran? That's hilarious. Fred, is Shan there in Chicago? Yeah, too funny. I don't know what it is you're referring to, but you're cracking me up. Was that Shan who just ran across my fence? Oh, it was a squirrel. I got it. Me brain. Okay, we're coming up on an hour and a half. Brain is starting to sizzle and fry. I'm so excited coming on live with you guys again. Yesterday was great, although it was short. I was excited to be here. I'm excited to be here today. I'm really hoping that I can get the ball rolling again. I don't want to jinx myself though. And I am still chipping away at the, the whole yoga thing, which I haven't even mentioned yoga yet. And here we are, an hour and 23 minutes in almost. So I think I'm going to do another yoga recording because I continue to make little tiny changes on my routine. And I want to say about 3 weeks away from my certification. So I can't believe how much I've worked on it. I can pat myself on the back for that, because I would have thought that I would have waited until these last 3 weeks, kind of a little bit of procrastination kind of thing. But no, although I was planning on working my tail off on it much earlier, it took me a while to get it going. Just with, it's hard to find students. And then, the thing I've done with my YouTube and the laptop and the cell phone is like, I have the whole 7 pages typed out of all the instructions. I read them out loud and tape it. And then I play the tape of me basically teaching the class. I play it for myself to teach myself. And then I'm videotaping it, because then I can watch it and I can learn more. It's just like this loop of learning and learning and learning. And so I was talking about doing it like that with the devices and with the YouTube. for months before I ever finally did it. Like, I don't think anybody else in my program is doing that. But my instructor, she has a whole YouTube thing too. So she thinks it's cool. So she's supportive of it. And yeah, I'm excited just for learning more about yoga. I'm excited for sharing the positive effects of yoga. I have said it again and again that if I inspire one person to do one stretch, I feel like I've accomplished my mission. And it's really incredible to feel like you're helping people, and I think when we feel like we're helping people, that helps us. So it's almost kind of a self-serving thing. But I want to say in respect to Micah Miller that she was very dedicated to being God's servant and serving her church or serving her missions. She was really motivated with these African missions. And it is really cool when you feel like you have a calling and you feel like you've got, a purpose-driven life, to quote that highly successful series, the book and all of the work that went with it, the purpose-driven life. It's very, very cool. And, again, I just find that I do better in my life in general when I have structure and routine. And that's something that I learned in graduate school in doing my internship in a psychiatric facility. And structure and routine was the backbone of what we were helping the patients with. And psychiatric patients, or we all know with children, that structure and routine are the foundation of growth and health and everything positive that we experience. But it's not just for people that are in a crisis or growing up. For me, it's all the time. And I kind of, project that onto other people too, that I think we all do better when we have structure and routine, whatever that structure and routine is. I mean, it's the whole philosophy behind like Montessori school. It's like, when you have little kids and they start getting busy with, crayons or finger painting or, Legos or whatever, when they are focused on something, they're happy. And when they're not focused on something is when they melt down. And I feel like I'm the same way. If I'm focused on my yoga, if I'm focused on my gardening, if I'm focused on my jewelry designing or other crafts or hobbies, I do great. And if I'm just chilling, it's a challenge for me. I have to like make myself veg, or as the kids say these days, rot. Just rotting on the couch is sometimes a necessity, but too much of a good thing is not a good thing. So we need to be careful with that, right? And, I just think when we're doing all of our YouTubing, which is so exhilarating and interesting, and there's so much to it, and there's so much hope in my understanding and experience of how I approach true crime. There's so much hope of finding the truth and finding justice and helping people. That's what motivates me. So I just hope that all of this is going to be fruitful in many different ways. Like, you just never know. It's really nice. I know a couple of my commenters have said things recently in the chats, like, you help me more than you'll ever know, or something like that. And that's so sweet. And yeah, I really believe in just being positive and being kind and being honest and being authentic. That, that's like the best gift that we can give to anyone. I call it my anxiety. I'm not sure if you're talking about, you call it your anxiety being directed. Well, yeah. And like, I fidget with my hands a lot, and a lot of us like to have those fidget toys. I never have them handy when I need them. So I just fidget with my fingers, and I try not to do it on screen because it embarrasses me. But I think, that's kind of normal, like worry stones, squishy balls, and then all these other like little poppy devices and stuff, or Rubik's Cube, or what have you, knitting or crocheting, idle hands are of who. So yeah, we need to focus, and yeah, it definitely reduces anxiety for me too. Anna Ruley. Anna Ruler. Okay, time to go. Let's see, because my brain is starting to collapse. Yeah. And just be yourself, you guys. That is the best thing that we can do for anyone, for ourselves or for anyone else. Just be you. I used to share this with you guys a lot. My mom would say, just be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. So you be you, you do you, boo, and see you on the next one. It's Friday. My life is always more chaotic over the weekends than during the week. So I will try to be doing some YouTubing, but it might be tough to be creating content over the weekend. I'm going to try to get back into my structure of like Monday through Friday. And so if I don't see you before then, I'll hopefully see you Monday. So have a great weekend. Thank you for hanging out with me for the last hour and a half, and sending you light, sending you love. I keep blocking the chakra tower. After all, it is the coolest thing in the world, isn't it? It keeps evolving and getting a little bit better. And what else? You can't see the top one that's white. It could be purple, but I don't know if I can angle it so that you can see it up there. And look, I got my Let Your Light So Shine. There we go. There, but now you can't see the bottom one. Let's see. I can get out of the way. There's the whole thing from top to bottom. All right, you guys, peace out. Sending you light and love. Let your light so shine. Don't forget to eat your protein, your fruits, and your veggies, and stay hydrated. Be kind to yourself, kind to other people. Just don't stop doing what you do and following your bliss, following your dreams, following your intuition, trusting yourself, and knowing what you know. All right. Thanks again. Love and light. See you soon.